So very good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. You may be in whichever part of the world. Nice to have you all here. And I would like to thank the organizers of the 16th Manufacturing IT Summit for this opportunity to be sharing our learning experience here and also to learn from every one of you. First and foremost, I would like to know whether is any one of you interested in a treasure hunt? I'm sure, of course, this is a virtual conference. I presume the answer is yes. There is lots and lots of opportunities. There is lots and lots of the money that is to be picked up in our own operations, or the Gemba as we call it, in whichever part of area we work. Therefore, I think what is more critical is in this situation when we are battling inflation, battling currency depreciation, battling various costs, how is that we go and then approach the situation in a manner that we are able to extract the value, the place where we work, and therefore add significant value to our consumers, customers, and of course, our companies. So end of the day, we are all business managers playing our different roles. Ultimately, it's about what value we bring into our businesses. So I think the topic today, as we all know, is in terms of how is that we are going to leverage significantly the kind of revolution that is happening, the digital revolution that is happening globally with the Industry 4.0. Now, if you look at the manufacturing industries, it's come a long way. Of course, I don't want to go through the basic definitions of 1, 2, 3 to 4, where we are, which I'm sure you're all aware of. What is important is to see that whatever we have today as Industry 4.0, what does that mean to every one of us? Because there are different levels of the plants that we have, different technology, different nature of industries, countries, geographies, and challenges. What is that we exactly have to do basis this given situation? First and foremost, I think it's important to kind of have a very clear map as to what exactly we would want to do in this given situation. Like I said, there could be a typical basic factory. You could have at wherever levels you are. There could be factories which are at a slightly higher level of automation and technology. And there could be, again, factories at a much more level, superior level as a typical smart factory. But I think this journey is what is more important, because there are only going to be milestones. And I personally don't see any destination here because of the kind of developments that are happening. I think we're going to be catching up continuously as we go forward in this exercise. Now, if you look at our typical operations, now what is that which is going to make the factory smart? I personally believe that yes, factories were smart before. It's just that it's gotten a little smarter. The only difference in my view is the fact that people used to be really going after all of these issues. In fact, it's a different kind of a mindset if you look at, over the last, especially 20 to 30 years, how the industry has transformed. Used to typically have people tracking losses, chasing losses on the shop floor, and it required a mindset. It required a particular kind of a skill set. Obviously, which means that if in case there is any change that happens, you need to bring in the new set of talent and then have them trained and so on. Therefore, the entire visibility of the challenges, the problems that we have, that is something which used to be only through the people. You don't really get to hear much otherwise. I think this is where this has done a remarkable, difference to the ways we work today. I think it's just like having a glass ceiling on, our plants. You get to exactly know what is happening. And the first solution, anything you want to solve, I think fundamentally it's about exposing the problem once the problem is exposed, you really know where to go after, what to look at, and therefore ensure that we are able to prioritize and then use our own toolbox of solutions to go and resolve those issues, whatever we have. Now, in this, obviously, I think, safety, quality, all of these, what is listed, is going to be the key focus areas. This is typically, is what you would find for any manufacturing operation. And each and every area can be severely impacted in a manner that it is a game changer and gives you a significant advantage in terms of the way you operate, and lots and lots of, it brings in joy to the people who operate. The typical question that comes in this situation is, how do we go about it? Is it something which is easy? Is it possible, in any location? And so on and so forth. Fundamentally, I think it's about the change management. It's about the mindset. Because if you're going to start digitalization and you're going to start measuring what is happening, trust me, you're in for a rude shock. What you think your OEE is will dramatically drop. I think we've seen this consistently over various plants in various locations. When you think your OEEs are in the high 70s and early 80s, the moment you kind of implement any of these systems, you'll see that OEE drops by at least 10 to 15%, depending on the kind of situation, the way you measure it. So that's a great opportunity because it's about unlocking that much more capacity, which was otherwise hidden and not really visible for somebody to go after. So therefore, it requires a very, very clear mindset of saying that, look, as we unearth all of these losses and challenges, we are going to support the team and we are going to be tolerant in ensuring that we give a reaction or a response that is going to be supporting the team and not telling the team that, look, this is not what you have done. It's about saying, wow, if you have 10 lines, if you take 10% of, OE, which you think was not existing, and now you've been able to do it, you've got a line. In fact, you've got a brand new line without any CapEx. I think that's the kind of opportunity we've seen consistently in these kind of applications. So therefore, it requires a mindset, and it's a very clear walk the talk. It requires feet on street approach, ensuring that there is a clear positivity around this whole exercise. In terms of the CapEx, it depends on the appetite of the organization, how you want to, what is that you want to chew, therefore you bite to that extent. But there are amazing opportunities, and many of the pilots, what we've seen in our experience and learned from others around, that it doesn't really require a significant CapEx. If you want to start small, if you want to look at, doing basics, and then you see how people get excited. And, for all of these things, you can just work with what you have. One question that keeps coming is, okay, what about the infrastructure, especially in this part of the world? I mean, I have not really seen any difference in my view. It's as good and as bad as, you would find anywhere else. I've seen with whatever travel I've done, whatever locations I've worked, I would not say that, look, this location has been great in infrastructure in terms of the IT, in terms of, the internet. You keep having whatever challenges that you see everywhere. So it's, to me, an exaggeration. And I think we need to put all of these distractions aside as we embark in a journey like this. And based on my experience and what I have seen, I think this has at least not come in the way I would say. Yes, we've had a situation where, you would have a couple of blips here and there, but this is not something which is, going to distract the journey in terms of where you want to go. And most importantly, the people skills. Okay, does this require a significant change in the way, we need to approach? And how is that we are going to train so many people? How we are going to reskill all of these things? Now, the beauty is we always have the kind of resources in any plant. And our biggest learning is we can do with what we have, be it the people, be it the skill levels in which they are in. Yes, there would be upgrades based on the kind of applications that you use, but largely, I would say that we have been we've had an experience where consistently it's our own team who's been able to deliver significantly. And it's also a mindset. When you expect them to deliver, they will deliver. Give them the training, give them the support. And we are so proud as a company to say that we've kind of had 100% dependence on the entire local resources out here. And that's something which we are very proud of, because that's one of the things we want to really develop the local talent, especially in these areas which are extremely important and which is a competitive advantage. I just give a couple of the actual examples as we go through. I think this is one of the game-changing projects, I would say. If you look at the phase 1, which is, this was the first, the proof of concept, the pilot that was done. And if I could use a pointer. Okay, so you would find here this particular graph showing distortions. These distortions, what you see up and down, are the speed losses. Now, this is a complete downtime. And look at the inconsistency in the speeds. All of these were not measured in a manner what you are seeing today. And look at these gaps. Even if the line is going to be stopping for a few seconds, you will have the time when it stopped and then when it started. And of course, we have an operator interface that will say as to what exactly is the reason and why it stopped. So this is such a great opportunity as what you would see. All these variances that you see here, all the gaps is what is the hidden factory that you have. In just a matter of few weeks, here you would find in the right-hand side, which is the phase 2, a situation where it is just evened out. You can clearly see a situation where we have the line straight compared to the other one. Just trying to get, I'm sorry. So here, see how uniform it is just in a matter of few weeks here. And there is nothing that has dramatically changed. The same set of people working, the same set of the force on ground, the operators, the technicians and the supervisors. It's just that it's about making it visible. So we've got a monitor and that will say what exactly is happening. And it's just not at that moment or instant. And one of the challenges we see generally in manufacturing is the fact that when a line is running, people will feel very comfortable, but it would be running at a lower speed. It could be having minor stoppages. It could be churning out wastages, but that is not something which gets visible in a general scenario. So this has been a big shift, as you would see, what perhaps was in the 70s when we measured, we realized it's at 51. And then with all of this in this journey, it's gone to 80% plus. So this is in fact, most revealing. And the beauty is it's all been done in-house with the kind of, support that's there within and the kind of teams that we work with. So that's something which is a real joy. I'll quickly move on to the next one. This is based on the condition monitoring. 20, 30 years ago, it's about, we have a philosophy which is called look, listen, and feel. As an engineer, when you walk through the shop floor, what is important is to look at, and be attentive as to what is happening around the machines. So look for any abnormality, listen for any kind of an abnormal noise, and then feel. So we touch and feel certain drives when you feel the vibration, when you feel the temperature being high. So which means a person will have to be skilled. He has to be physically present. And then imagine the kind of number of drives that you would have in the plant. It's not going to be an easy exercise. Now we have some wonderful tracking devices that's going to measure the temperature, measure the vibration. And one of the clear, as we all know, the failures of a drive is almost 50% plus is attributed to the bearings. Because whatever happens, invariably the bearing takes the brunt of the entire load. So therefore, from there, it starts generating heat. Then there is a vibration. And by tracking these vibrations, and still, in fact, there are different levels you can set basis the experience of the particular line. You start calibrating and then doing it. So here the red is the one that is an extreme situation. And the yellow is what you see here, is more the alert that you have. But literally, I'm saying if it gets to a point where it is somewhere here, then you would say, okay, it's time for me to stop the line. But there's a difference between a planned stoppage and unplanned stoppage. We all know that. We kind of significantly minimize the entire losses if you can plan and stop. And it could also be part of the maintenance cycle that you have to do it. So this has been another amazing learning in terms of what can be done with very, very simple gadgets. Finally, with respect to the cost part, if you just look at, nothing is going to be revealing unless we are able to measure the costs and then say what exactly are the benefits we've got and how we sustain those benefits. It's like going back to my very first statement, the treasure hunt. What is that you're hunting here? You're hunting the losses. So the larger typical part of this whole thing is energy is a significant cost. Of course, the manpower is another significant cost of conversion. And the material in itself, like what we know, depending on the nature of the product, could be 70 to 80% of the total cost. So real-time measurement of energy, wastages could be every half an hour, an hour, depending on the nature of the line. All of those things are something which can also be incorporated and then displayed. And therefore, nothing works like numbers. The moment it's visible, people themselves on the shop floor start working on looking at what is it and then start finding solutions. Is it only for the maintenance and the OE part? I think safety is another phenomenal area. Wherever there is an increase in the temperature in any of your gadgets, I think with the thermography, we'll be able to identify and start taking proactive steps. In fact, you will be able to significantly de-risk fire, any such kind of a situation that could happen by virtue of these. And these are all very, very simple devices people use. There's nothing that you need to really train. It's just, and you find there's so much of excitement, the way people kind of look at it and then, use, and then they keep coming again and again saying that I want to do more and more and more. And in quality, I think the critical control point, which is, the metal detector. Traditionally, we have metal detectors, then we know, okay, it rejects, but today you can say how many times has it rejected, when it happened. Therefore, if in a line, you're going to have a situation where it's going to be an abnormal rejections, that means there's some contamination that has happened. There could be timely intervention, either in stopping the line or looking at the root cause of what is to be done and so on. So with all of this, I think the best part is we can work with what we have. The kind of talent that is available in Africa, I've kind of seen in my experience, it's amazing. It's as good as what you would find elsewhere. And there is greater opportunity to further develop, and which is what, we believe in. And all of these initiatives, literally, I would say almost 80–90% of these initiatives have been driven by our own engineers. And we are very, very proud of this accomplishment. And of course, the journey continues. There is no such kind of a thing that, like I said, we reached a destination. All of these are only milestones. Thank you. Thanks for this opportunity. And it's a pleasure to share the experience, the learnings with you all.